the publisher of Detroit Lions on Sports Illustrated and the host of the Detroit Sports Podcast. And by the way, this interview is brought to you by our good friends over at BetUS. Please welcome in the Doc, Mr. John Maakaron. John, how you doing today? Look at you. Are you in New York too? Look at you.
I am in New Jersey. I'm staring at the New York skyline. I'm directly maybe half a mile from MetLife Stadium. I'm excited. The opportunity to talk football with you guys, recap what happened. It was a crazy 2 days of joint practice. I got into the city. Man, New York is full of energy. It's a little different than what I remember 20 years ago, but oh my goodness, have I just had the best 3 days. And now I get to recap it with the fellas. It's been a good time, but my goodness, man, it might have taken me 24 hours to recover from the heat. It was brutal. And I could see why tempers were flaring. It was hot as fuck. Man, for 2 days, we were trying to do everything in brutal heat. The weather here is terrible. But other than the weather, man, the football, the environment, the pizza, the food, the environment, I've had a great time, man.
The pizza. Love to hear it.
Oh, Doc.
Hey, well, Doc, we're happy to have you. You know what? Joining us, even though you're on the road, you had a chance to watch the joint practice. So you were in attendance. I'll start with the very obvious one. You already know where I'm going. Kirby Joseph doing his best, Jake Paul, as now at least this year would say. Mike Tyson-esque, throwing some haymakers. What's been going on? The Lions just got fined, along with the Giants, $200,000 for the fighting that's been going on because they've had a ton of fights. And it's not just the Lions and Giants. It seems like a lot of training camps all over are having fights and joint practices. To you, how bad was it? Because, Doc, we brought it up. We're okay with it getting scrappy. But then there's a level it gets to where you just can't get work done. What was your takeaway from just watching all the scrapping going on?
Oh, I loved it. It was great. It was aggressive. Look, let's set the stage. If you guys remember last year, the Giants came to Detroit, and day one, the Lions embarrassed the Giants. And the heat that the Giants got from what happened on day one was completely overwhelming to the entire franchise. Many people even say it set the tone for the season. Like the Lions bitch slapped the Giants last year on day one. They had a little bit better day two, but it resonated. And so coming into joint practices, all the talk, because it was at Quest Diagnostics, it was the home of the Giants. All the talk from the media going into it was, hey, you can't let Detroit punk you again because they have the capability of doing it. And the New York media is no joke. They don't need to, step aside or have any favor for anything. They were directly pointing the finger at the Giants. Have you changed? Are you different? So you're going to come out. You got to, go at Detroit. So right away, you could see after a rep, the Giants would take an extra bump. And right away, you saw on day one, they tried to rough up one of the Lions' best players, and they went after Amon-Ra St. Brown. So right away, he set the tone, and he went after it. He was not going to take any of that shit, So it was great to watch. I was like, this is great. And I was just loving the frustration, loving the tension back and forth. Two teams going at it, and none of them were backing down. And really, it's just testosterone at the highest level. So to be there, it was great to document and to just see how crazy rabid the Giants fans were talking crap because they were right behind the Lions. Then you get to day two, and I thought that they would kind of settle down, that the coaches would talk to the players and say, hey, knock it off, like get to work. There was still a lot of work done. Yeah, there was a lot of pauses, and it gets a little bit annoying, but any breaks were great because you guys know I'm doing live updates, tweeting, taking videos, editing videos, trying to take photos. I'm doing 5 things at once. So any break in the action was great for me. And I loved it. It was entertaining. I got to then see who was posting the videos live, what was actually going on, because the Kirby fight was crazy. I was actually because I switched days. So the first day I watched the Lions offense, and the second day I watched the Lions defense. And I have another colleague who writes for the Giants on SI, and we compared notes. We worked together. And she was great. I mean, she was a great asset to discuss what was going on the other field. So I was walking because at the end of practice for red zone work, they end up switching fields into one field where offense and defense works in the red zone. I get there, and boom, I see the scuffle from the end zone perspective. So I at first thought it was Terrion Arnold that was swinging, but he was right there in the mix. But it was Kirby Joseph. And look, if you think you're going to put your hands on Kirby Joseph and he's not going to retaliate, he must have been seeing red, because the second that Neighbors tried that nonsense, he got clocked by Kirby Joseph. You're glad that his hand was okay. And look, it's clear a Dan Campbell squad is not going to take shit from anybody. And that's great to see. I thought that, it sucks that they got fined for it, but bottom line, watching it, it was thrilling. It's like basically being in a heavyweight matchup, watching it live, and you're seeing two teams go toe-to-toe and not wanting to back down. It was absolutely fabulous. I don't mind seeing that kind of stuff. It does get, by the end of practice, it does get a little bit redundant, but at the same token, it's two teams trying to stand their ground, and Detroit stood toe-to-toe with the Giants. I thought it was a great week of work, a great 2 days, 4 hours, 2 hours each day, a great 2 days of joint practice for the Lions. A lot of things that they can learn from.
Doc, I'm glad you weren't out there fighting. First of all, I know you would have taken some people, but I'm glad you weren't throwing fists. One thing that stood out to me, and we kept hearing, obviously from day one to day two, I think the biggest thing from the Lions' perspective, at least, was the secondary, and it seemed like there might have been some struggles. I don't know if that was. I guess we kept seeing different reports where it was like the Lions secondary is doing good, they're doing bad, and it was like the Giants kind of side of the things where they were looking at it a little different. I just want to get from your perspective from day one to day two. Like, obviously the Kirby Joseph thing, like Malik Neighbors was going nuts for 2 days. We know that, but just as a secondary as a whole, Terrion Arnold, Brian Branch, Iffy, Carlton Davis, all these guys, Ennis Rakestraw, how did they look? Like, what was it as bad as kind of it was getting put out to be on Monday, all the into Tuesday, or were they actually starting to hold their own and stepping up and kind of improving?
Hey guys, I interrupted today's video to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, and that is BetUS. Currently, BetUS is offering you a 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits for up to $2,000. Now, terms and conditions apply. Please bet responsibly. Link will be in the description. Sign up using our link. And with the football season coming around, Detroit Lions fans, you want to make some extra money. Well, there are lines that are currently out there that I like. For example, and I'll show you this one. Aiden Hutchinson is plus 1,200 to win Defensive Player of the Year. If I'm telling you right now, that is favorable. Good odds on a player that is expected to have a monster year. Only on betus.com. Check it out. Let's get back to the video.
Okay, let's set this scene here, okay? Because here's what tends to happen. You got fans posting videos, you got media posting videos, and what people do is they go into their camps and they say, okay, well, based on this rep, this is how it looked. Okay, so I hope that you can trust what I'm saying here. Okay, but first let's set the stage here and let's put everything into context. Okay, they're not game planning. They're not saying, hey, we're going to try this and try that. It's basically we're going to call this defensive play and let's see how it goes. So it's not as serious as people are making it. But the way in which you want to look at joint practice is that these are opportunities for the Lions to make plays. Do you know how much value Terrion Arnold will get from seeing film of him being step for step with Malik Neighbors, but not turning around and having that play get completed? Okay, so here's the thing. Here's what happened. Early on, the Giants were able to kind of do some things against the Lions defense. And, look, the Giants came full force. And clearly the MVP of the 2 days was Malik Neighbors. The man was all over the place. He torched Carlton Davis. He got one on Terrion Arnold. Now, does that mean that the complete practice was something to be worried about for the secondary? No. It means that this is where you want to make mistakes, figure stuff out, test things out. And here's the way I looked at it, because they didn't do a lot of press man. I wrote in my notes, okay, they were giving a little bit of cushion. They were doing some things to try and set their coverage in a way to, not get beat and things like that. It wasn't as physical on the line of scrimmage as you would think in a game. But I will say this. I thought that Amik Robertson had moments where he looked strong. Terrion Arnold, you saw the video where he did end up getting the pass breakup. So here's the best way to put it. The secondary has a lot to clean up. You realize this is the first week of training camp. They're all trying to learn to play together. So, yeah, there were things that were not great. Look, Malik Neighbors is a superstar. Look, he clearly showed why he's a first-round pick. So you can't just poo-poo that. And when I wrote the Lions can't stop Malik Neighbors, it meant that it wasn't like he got 20 for 20 completions. He had one or two incompletions. But if you want to focus on the one time where he catches the ball and there's a debate whether he's out of bounds, he caught the ball, whether he landed in bounds or not. Let me just tell you this. If you saw Malik Neighbors for those 2 days, you would be like, wow, this guy's a stud. He's for real. He's the truth. He is the truth. He did whatever he needed to, but also remember that this is within the context of 7-on-7 and some team periods. 7-on-7 is made for the offense. It's just the way it is. But did they make plays? Yeah. But the secondary did as well. Carlton Davis got beat a couple times, but he came back and made plays. Stephen Gilmore made plays. You recognize that there are situations in which, the Giants reporter posted that Brian Burns was a beast. But yes, there was a rep where Taylor Decker had his way with him and pushed him aside. There's a lot of reps that take place. But when someone posts something online, they kind of post it like out of 10 reps, if someone wins 8 of them, then there's something to be said there. So Neighbors won the day 1 and day 2, clearly. But Terrion Arnold made plays. You see why he is someone that you can build upon in that secondary. I think it's great. I thought that him getting torched was great. That's good for him. Make those mistakes now in training camp where you can sit back and learn. Hey, turn your head here. Learn this, learn that. And I just thought that the secondary, you always have to have a slight level of concern regarding how they gel. And then, of course, what happens after day 1, Emmanuel Mosley goes down, which kind of put a damper on day 2 for Lions on the defense.
Yeah, kind of keeping it with the defensive side, Doc, and a guy that continues to prove me wrong. It looks like day in and day out that he steps foot on the field for the Detroit Lions this offseason. Levi Onwuzurike. Levi O. What did you see from him between the joint practices now that he's actually been able to get a taste of another offensive line, specifically a number 1 offensive line in front of him?
Yeah, I'm very curious because he did draw the ire of Dan Campbell on day 2. They set the stage. The 2 coaches set the stage for, hey, let's not get too much over the line. Yeah, play competitive. Yeah, play physical, but don't do anything stupid. And on day 2, Levi kept pushing it. Now, Levi did upset. He did get called out by Brian Daboll for kind of swatting at the hand of Daniel Jones. So on Monday, yeah, he did. He got into it. So
I like that.
Yeah, I like it too. Me personally, I think that Levi is showing exactly what he needs to do to keep a job. And look, I think that he looks strong. He looks physical. He can get off the line. He can get off the defensive line with some solid push. The man has earned his job. And I think when you recognize, okay, maybe DJ Reader's not ready, you can count on Levi to do some things. I thought that he competed hard. And look, it just, when your coach says, do not cross that line, and you do, he got yanked off the field. And I don't know, does he get talked to? Is that looked at as a negative? Because Dan Campbell said that's part of the evaluation. We told you guys do not step over the line. And he did. But I don't think that's going to mar the total work that he's done. He's been one of those camp guys where you can say, I'm writing 91's name in my notebook quite a bit. And I think that if he gets an opportunity this year and he stays healthy, look for him to cause some havoc and finally take the step that he needs to get his career off the ground. No doubt Levi's had a great camp.
Yeah, John, I just wanted to ask a little update on the wide receiver room. Obviously, we have a little battle going on there. Is there anyone that stood out in New York? And just basically my weekly update of Jameson Williams. How's my guy look?
Oh, yeah, that was great. Monday, I'm sitting there on the sideline, and all of a sudden, Goff unloads to Jameson Williams, and he made it look easy. He turned on the jets, and he blew past the Giants defender, and he got to wave at him and point at him, and it was great. He was somebody that took advantage of the opportunity. He had the red zone touchdown on Monday. Jameson Williams is doing his thing. Professional. He's the truth, and he's putting himself up there week by week with his performances that when he is serious about his craft and he's locked in, he's going to handle business. And I think that the 2 days were solid for Jameson Williams. You look at it now, and people are looking at other wide receivers. Look, unfortunately, Donovan Peoples-Jones is repping with the threes, and he's not doing things. He's just, they try to target him, but he's not making impactful plays. So, I can tell you that if we do another 53-man projection Friday, Saturday, unless he balls out Thursday in the preseason game, I don't think he makes his team. I mean, I think that you look at two guys, and look, you guys have heard the daily press conferences. I said, hey, when I was asking about Isaiah Williams, what is a guy like that's battling for a job? What does he got to do to make a team? And Dan Campbell said, it's not the flash plays. It's just do what you got to do every single day and be consistent. And two guys have been consistent where you're writing their name as receptions, open, doing things, getting targeted. You're seeing Darius Fountain handle business, and I think he's the clear guy that you can put at wide receiver 3 or 4, and he can be productive. I think that he's a big-bodied receiver, can high point the ball, is all over the place, repping with the ones. He's moved himself up the depth chart. He's doing great things, and if he has a rough moment, he works hard to get back at it. And then the other guy is, and the media's kind of put it this way, for all the people that love TK85, Caden Davis, 88, is just an all-around better version of Tom Kennedy. Straight across the board. A little bit more physical, a little bit more sure-handed, a little bit more impactful, a little bit faster. He's just catching the ball, making plays. And he's all over the notebook. So Fountain and Caden Davis, I would say at worst have earned a spot on the practice squad. But if they show out in the preseason, those two guys are going to make it super tough to really make the decision tough for Brad Holmes as to who to drop from the roster, because Caden Davis and Darius Fountain, man, they're balling out and they're making plays day after day after day. It's 12 and 88 after the starters.
Wow. KD 88. Love to hear it.
KD 88. It's great to see because they're consistent. I had a chance to talk to Caden Davis and Darius Fountain. I think they both want to work hard and are doing everything possible to make this roster, and they're competing hard. And you see it. When they make plays, they start repping with the ones, and they're also holding their own when they're going up against better competition.
Real quick before Jeff goes, real quick, just a wide receiver question. Just I'll let you go here. The Jameson Williams thing, is he starting to? And this was a conversation we had yesterday. We were talking about the reliability of Jameson Williams. Does it feel like he's starting to get a little comfortable with Jared Goff to where it's like he's more reliable now? I know in the past he's had some drops and there's been that little question mark. Is that kind of gone, or is it kind of starting to feel a little bit better to where it's like, hey, we can rely on JMO? I kind of gave the example to where at some point, hopefully, Goff can rely on him like he did with Josh Reynolds. Is it starting to get that feeling a little bit to where that connection's starting to kind of mold together?
Yeah, no doubt. You're starting to see Jameson get targeted. I mean, that rep was great. I thought that, they clearly wanted to see Jameson Williams go deep and turn on the Jets, and he did that. Yeah, the connection's getting there. And you see opportunities that, hey, if this offense can add more of an explosive element to it, my goodness, it's going to just pose such a problem. But you look at Jameson Williams, and outside of the explosiveness, he can do so many different things, just like Deebo Samuel. I know you guys were doing the depth chart. If Jameson Williams takes off and you're able to give him certain reverses or handoffs and use him in the intermediate passing game and let him do his thing with picking up speed and letting him get momentum, you saw in the NFC Championship game, if Jameson Williams, the X factor really of the football team, if he takes it to that next step and he's consistent, Lions no doubt would be number one in most people's power rankings, and they could get there by week 2 or 3 if Jameson balls out. He's been playing that well.
Yeah, I'm just sorry, Doc.
He's shook.
I'm just processing DPJ might not make the roster, but
well, you guys are reading it. Is he doing anything? Are you? I'm not saying.
Hey, Doc, we
I've been questioning it since day one.
We always break down your articles, Doc, and you have been consistent, and so have a lot of writers.
Not doing anything.
He has not been doing it.
I got killed after minicamp when I called DPJ out, and shout out to you, Doc, because when I called him out originally, you the next day went asked Dan Campbell about him, and he ended up not saying like nothing good, and I was, guess what? There's actually something there, and then I got killed. The chat, hey, shout out to chat. We love the people listening. They came at me hard. They killed me. They killed me for it. Now look at it.
But in the end, they like the big-bodied receiver that makes plays. They thought maybe it's DPJ, but for whatever reason, it just hasn't been consistent yet. And maybe he's one of those guys that when the bright lights are on in the game, maybe he'll turn it up and he'll make plays. But in practice, he's not consistently getting his number written down. We write down every single play. And you're not seeing 19 catching the ball. You're just not.
Doc, I do want to bring up another player. Speaking of guys, not that he's in the same camp. I want to make that very clear. But Jack Campbell, because we'd had this discussion about Jack Campbell before, and sorry, voters making me laugh because we argued on the way to Nashville about
For like 2 hours.
No, Doc,
Yeah.
you don't understand.
2 hours.
You don't understand.
No,
This
but
was
Doc,
the most-
Doc, I'm not gonna lie. This is how much we love you.
did
We
a
were
whole
like
show.
arguing, and we go, "Screw it, we're texting Doc," and I texted you immediately because Doc will tell us the truth. What has been your? Not that we're hitting the panic button, but my big thing is he's always been my number one breakout player, and I'm still standing by that with JMO. Those two guys. For someone like you who's been there every single day, what has been your takeaway from Jack? We know Jack's solid, but do you still have that faith in what you've seen that he can really take that? Second year jump, or maybe it's just too early to expect that? What has been your takeaways with Jack?
Yeah, it's just tough because I know you're not seeing him consistently getting the sack totals and the pressures. But look, it's tough for linebackers because you got to kind of hold up against the quarterback. You got to go full speed, but then you got to try to let up against the quarterback. But I'll say this, he's definitely getting an education in coverage working against Sam Laporta. So far, Sam Laporta has had the edge when he's gone out in coverage against Jack Campbell, but that can only help him. And so I look at it like this. Jack Campbell looks a little bit more comfortable, more fluid, in a sense that you say, okay, you want him to end up becoming the Mike linebacker and handle everything. Now, is he getting his name written down and making key impactful plays? Not as much as maybe we expect more. But at the same token, here's the thing, and here's what's difficult is that sometimes, Jack Campbell was brought in as a first-round draft pick, right? So who gets offended and pissed off? And that's number 55, Derek Barnes. Well, Derek Barnes is like, okay, you guys want the organization wants to replace me. He stepped his game up. He's violent. He's much more aggressive. He's all over the place. And Derek Barnes is making more of an impact in terms of practice reps. But I think with what Jack Campbell is going to be set to do, I think that he's prepared to do everything possible to make the second-year jump. Now, is it going to be to the heights that everybody thinks? I think that position is just super challenging in terms of all the things you got to have in order. And I just think that Jack Campbell is going to benefit from the defensive line being much better and the secondary being much better as well, so that when he's asked to go in coverage, man, it's just tough. Linebackers against tight ends in this day and age, it's a fun matchup. And I think that Jack Campbell loves learning from and working against Sam Laporta. But, man, it just goes to show you, I don't say, hey, man, Jack Campbell's struggling. I say, wow, how great is Sam Laporta that he can just make a move and just shake a linebacker and just so easily get open. But Jack Campbell has to improve. I think that the next coming weeks, I do believe you'll start to hear a little bit more impacted. Look, remember, we've only had now a week of pads and a couple of padded practices against the New York Giants. I expect that as camp progresses, as you start to read more about this defense gelling and getting more into camp, I think you'll start to be comfortable with Jack Campbell. Look, he's going to be consistent. I think that the room is set up perfectly with the veteran leadership of Alex Anzalone and Jalen Reeves-Maybin. You got Derek Barnes, literally, who's kind of emerging as that kind of vocal, violent leader. We kind of thought it would maybe be more Jack Campbell, but as he described himself, he's got the least amount of swag on the team. But that guy's all business, and I think that once he keeps learning, getting back in the film room, I think that he'll start to make steady progress. It's not where you want it to be right now, but I don't think that you should have to worry about Jack Campbell. If you guys are going to do – I wouldn't worry about Jack Campbell. I think he's got the right mindset. Do not worry about Jack Campbell. If you're going to start doing the worry meter, I would worry about the secondary because you have good players in Terry Arnold and Carlton Davis, but you still have Carlton Davis looking to prove himself as a true number one. And Malik Neighbors was not shy to go run right at him. And Daniel Jones did not shy away from throwing at Carlton Davis. But he makes some plays in camp, but also he gives up some stuff. So Carlton Davis also has some things to learn. Terry Arnold is a rookie. He's going to give up some plays. I'm curious to see how they develop over the course of time. And I would say the worry meter should be the secondary at right now at the top of mind. But I think that they can do some work to alleviate people's minds as the season progresses. They'll get better. It might not be right away where they're just lighting up the world, but the secondary has talent. And I think when they gel, man, look out. look out. I think they can do some things.
Doc, wanted to bring this up too. And you, since you've been around the team all off season, I brought this up yesterday and I kind of came out and said that I think it might be almost time. And maybe this is because, and we haven't seen any preseason games, but maybe it's time to start thinking about the Detroit Lions looking for a backup quarterback to go into the season, to where if something does happen for a couple of weeks with Goff, someone's able to step in and hold you afloat and win games. Is that too far off of a statement? Like, where do you stand on that? Like, do you still think, I know a lot of fans and a lot of people are holding hope that maybe Hendon Hooker performs well tomorrow in the next couple preseason games, and he kind of takes that step to where he could play that. I just don't think, like, at least from when we were at camp, for me, it didn't look like Hendon Hooker was close to being able to be that backup. And I know Sudfeld's just a very solid player and a solid quarterback, but do you think that that's something that they should look into, or where are you at with that backup quarterback battle, especially being a Super Bowl contender? I do think it's something to talk about and something to kind of be on the lookout for.
Yeah, it's the best way to look at it is, look, as we talked, nothing's changed in the depth chart. Sudfeld's number 2, Hooker's number 3. He hasn't been that great, and it kind of stunk because we anticipated that there would be more work, but on day 2, he was with the 3s, and the 3s only got 2 reps at a time. So I don't know if they were trying to protect him, but man, all I can say is that he wasn't that great on day 2. I wasn't all that impressed with what I saw on day 1. Made some plays. His scrambling ability was there. Yeah, he made some throws that were interesting, but there are still too many mistakes in terms of pre-snap, what was going on. And here's the part that sometimes you realize maybe a person's snake bitten. James Mitchell, it's in the red zone, and Hendon Hooker is, doing his pre-snap stuff, and he's not doing it correctly. And there was supposed to be something that happened that did not take place. Well, Ben Johnson immediately is like going crazy on the sideline. So the play gets run, and James Mitchell gets the catch, basically jogs into the end zone. I'm like, all right, hey, he makes a play. He's jogging into the end zone with Ben Johnson screaming at the top of his lungs. And it was just, you just felt bad for you. Well, the best way to put it is, I think there was supposed to be motion, or I think that the way in which it was supposed to be done was that you probably, I think Hooker needed to call the wide receiver over for a motion. It didn't happen. And Ben Johnson lit him up. And that was that. And he got off the field real fast. So, look, he makes mistakes. You want him to make it. But, yeah, he needs look, I don't know if he's going to do enough to jump Nate Sudfeld. I don't think he needs to go out and get another backup quarterback. You look at it and you say, it's all on Jared Goff's shoulder. If he goes down, it's all on his shoulder. If he goes down, I don't know if you want to take the chance on another veteran. Look, Jared Goff's been versatile. It is a gamble, but I look at it like I think Nate Sudfeld has done enough at this point to be the backup. But do you want to be more comfortable and invest? Well, if you do that, it's going to cost you $10 million, $15 million. And they got 2 guys that are a little bit more affordable. You have to hope that Hendon Hooker steps it up over the next couple of weeks. But, yeah, best way to describe it, he's been subpar, not good enough for the standards that the Lions need. Not good enough at all.
Tough.
Hendon Hooker making his debut tomorrow, Doc, and so is one Jake Bates. A very polarizing player, but in New York, what have you seen from him? Because it seems like on social media, at least, one day everybody loves him, and then everybody the next day is like, I don't know about this Jake Bates guy. But what did you see when you're in New York from Jake Bates? The only kicker on the Lions roster right now.
Only kicker right now, and he went 6 of 9 from what I saw on day 2. He's struggling from 43 to like 50 consistently. Look, here's what people love about him. He's got a huge leg. Like, if he just sits there and kicks it as far as possible, not knowing where it goes, man can kick it 60 yards. Like, he can just consistently kick it 60 yards. Problem is, he's not kicking it through the uprights, and that's the other part of the job. And here's something that's, I've been weighing. Clearly, and I hope we get a chance to talk to Dave Phipp in the next couple of weeks, but clearly, Jake Bates has an intangible. He has the leg strength, but he's not an experienced kicker. And so it would seem to me that a special teams coach could help a kicker with accuracy. But right now, Jake Bates is not accurate enough. Like, if it was up to me right now, he would not make the team. You go somewhere else, or you at least bring somebody else in and be more prone to have a competition. Bates, had a real brutal practice where he was just missing kicks from extra point range, and it was rough. And it's like one of those things where I want to ask Dave Phipp, Can you take a guy like, let's say, for example, I was blessed with a leg and I kick it 70 yards, but I have no clue where it's going. Can you consistently work on somebody and get them to be more accurate? That's to be determined, because right now it does not seem to be the case. Right now, Jake Bates is struggling, and not struggling with distance. He's struggling with accuracy. And in the NFL, you got to be consistent. So it'll be a big opportunity for him to make some kicks in some action. But remember, I think that as of now, they have a guy that they want to develop. I think they like the intangible. They like, okay, we got a guy that can kick the ball far. Now the secret sauce is, hey, kick it through those damn uprights. And he's got to do it more consistently. He racked up some misses, but they're mostly from like mid-range in the mid 40-yard range. So it'll be interesting to see how the preseason shakes out. And do they just send him out there to kick, or do they say, hey, Hendon Hooker, run this offense and be aggressive? So I'm curious to see how Jake Bates does, because outside of Hendon Hooker, many fans are right to be concerned about the kicking situation. The Lions have not gotten it consistent since Matt Prater.
And Doc, we kind of been talking about the defense a lot this whole offseason, the secondary, and obviously the edge position opposite of Hutch. How did James Houston and Marcus Davenport look against the Giants in their little weekend there, or their week there?
Yeah, no doubt. I liked what I saw from Marcus Davenport. Man, I liked when I asked Ali McNeil about Marcus Davenport. He's like, that dude's a silent killer. We're like, what do you mean? He's like, that dude wants to rip your face off, but is a nice guy. Like, he walks off the field, he's got a nice smile on his face, and I'm like, hey man, I'm looking forward to talking to you. He's like, just nods and smiles and walks off. And I hope for the opportunity to get to know him a little bit more throughout the season. But when he's out there, my goodness, you've seen some of the videos I posted at Detroit Podcast. You see his physicality. You see the way in which he wants to play. I think that Davenport is somebody that, if he stays healthy, I think will provide a realistic option. James Houston, I think the defensive line struggled a little bit on Monday. It wasn't the best showing for them, but on day two, you saw them rebound a little bit. You see James Houston kind of doing some things along the defensive line, reading plays well. I thought that his speed was good. I thought that his quickness and his agility was there. And I just think that for James Houston, it's all about it's not about the skill. He can sack the quarterback. It's about, hey, don't play hero ball. Like, you can't have a rep where you're exactly where you need to be. You're going to sack the quarterback, and then the next play you're out of position and you're not sealing the gap. Like, you're going to piss off the coach. The coach does not care if you record 40 sacks a year, but then you give up 20 chunk plays. Like, they don't want that. They want, hey, on this play, your job is to do X, and just do it. But I think James Houston innately is a pass rusher, and they're trying to mold him into a lot more than that, to be a 3-down defensive outside linebacker. But it just instincts are hard to break, and they're drilling it in him to, hey, do more of what we need, do your job, stay within the parameters of the scheme. But it's just hard sometimes when you're somebody like James Houston and you have an innate skill. You just got to be consistent, because there are times he draws the ire of the coaching staff, and there's times where you're like, man, that guy could destroy somebody if you let him be out there. But I tend to kind of go with the idea of, hey, if your skill is sack the quarterback and just go do that, and just be that guy, be the sack master of the Detroit Lions defense. But the Lions want to develop players to say, hey, if this guy goes down, you can do this. And they need guys that can do 2 or 3 things at the same time, because if somebody goes down, if you have a guy that's more versatile and you can put him at different spots along the defensive line, that's much more of an asset. So James Houston just has to be more consistent, stop being the hero, and do what the coaching staff tells you. And the more he does that, the faster he'll end up playing a lot more reps.
Yeah, I mean, to your point there, getting guys to be able to play different positions, well, they're going to need someone to play nickel if it's not Amik Robertson, because E-Man went down with a torn pec. I know you wrote about it on Detroit Lions on Sports Illustrated, and we talked about it earlier in the week. Just absolutely devastating, Doc. I mean, you tear your ACL, you come back almost a year later, tear your other ACL.
Man.
and then now he recovers and then tears his pec. So he's going to be out for the foreseeable future. Devastating news. What do you just your opinion on that? And also Dan Campbell mentioning how they're kind of getting iffy worked in at nickel just for a potential situation like this. What direction do you think they go at nickel here, Doc? I would think they lean to Meek Robertson unless someone else unless they want to get all their best players on the field. Maybe you play iffy there.
Yeah, no doubt. It's tough when you hear the news that Emmanuel Moseley goes down in practice. It's unfortunate, but there's still a chance he could come back. Maybe a similar situation if he recovers like CD Deuce, who was able to come back for a postseason run. I don't think that Emmanuel Moseley is going to hang it up, but man, you just feel bad. Sometimes some guys are just snake bitten with injuries and they just can't consistently get out there. And it just sucks. Dan Campbell can relate because toward the end of his career, injuries caught up to him. But look, is it impactful? I think that you lose a depth player, but you never really knew what you had in Emmanuel Moseley. You had a physical guy that played with the 49ers, but he just couldn't stay healthy. So you have a lot of depth at nickel. I mean, Christian wrote about it on Lions on SI. He kind of looked at all the 4 players that are in the competition, their strengths and weaknesses. You can check it out. But yeah, it's a Meek Robertson's job to lose at this point. But here's the thing. You have a lot of options. You can play Ennis Rakestraw there. You can play Brian Branch there. And you can play Ifeatu Melifonwu. And Ifeatu is the perfect example of what the Lions are looking for, but that's not easy to accomplish. Like Melifonwu is a guy that was a cornerback that they wanted, that they felt like, hey, he can play safety because of his physicality, but they keep switching his position. But the Lions have always said from day one, since I've been talking to Aaron Glenn and Dan Campbell, that they said he's a defensive back. And that doesn't mean that, hey, he's a safety and that's it. What they want to do, and you can clearly see, hey, if we need you at cornerback, go play cornerback. If we need you at the nickel spot for this matchup, do that. And so Ifeatu, while at first maybe there was some pushback, I think they understand that, hey, if you want to play in Detroit's system, you got to learn multiple crafts. And that's what they're trying to do. Some guys don't like that. And some guys maybe do not like that now. But I think that it's smart when you look at a player. If you can play multiple spots, hey, if we need you at nickel against this matchup, or if something happens to Robertson in training camp, hey, we have options. And I think that training guys at different spots is a smart thing. And I can't knock the Lions coaching staff. But at the same token, there's a debating philosophy that says, hey, if a guy is nabbed and targeted to be a safety, just put him at safety, let him do some things. Because there was a time, I think year 1, year 2 in Aaron Glenn's scheme, where a player, a defensive back, said, like, hey, I was given so much, I was flooded with information, and I couldn't play the position right. Then Aaron Glenn backed off a little bit, and they just kind of made the job simple and said, hey, it happened to even Brian Branch. Like, they threw so much at him that it just kind of stalled his progression. And
happened to Matthew Betts.
Yeah, it happened to Matthew Betts. So you recognize that sometimes they just do that, and you got to see what an individual, how they respond to it. But I think that Ifeatu Melifonwu would be great anywhere in Detroit's defense, and hopefully that the opportunities come and you mix and match guys. I think the nickel spot is the safe spot where there's going to be some productivity. The question mark is going to be, okay, behind Terrion Arnold and Carlton Davis, you have great options, I think, with Ennis Rakestraw. It would have been nice to see if Emmanuel Moseley could have seen some stuff on the outside too, but you lost a depth piece there, and it'll be interesting to see. Now, Stephen Gilmore repping with the 3s and 2s a little bit. He's been around the football. He makes plays, and it'll be curious to see how his camp progresses when the lights are on in the preseason.
Doc, I want to throw this out there too. Obviously, we're less than 24 hours away of the Detroit Lions kind of football being back. I know it's only preseason, but we're going to see the new jerseys, all that. What are you going into tomorrow? You're going to be in New York. What are you kind of going in looking at? Like, what players are the biggest? Like, hey, we need to keep an eye on these guys. If you have a list, cut guys, just kind of like they're like, obviously there's the positional battles, but there's also like those cut guys. Who are you going in being like, yeah, everyone needs to keep an eye on these players, whether it's offensively or defensively?
Yeah, no doubt. It's going to be fun, man. I'm excited. First, let me tell you, the transportation around New York is great. You can get an Uber within 5 minutes. I mean, a little bit of traffic. It's great. Traffic around MetLife is crazy. There's one way in, one way out, and there's a huge ass mall literally right across the street. that makes things a little bit confusing. But first and foremost, let's hope I get there, which I think is good. I can literally walk there if the Uber driver takes me to the wrong spot. I'm excited to go to MetLife. The weather's going to be nasty, I think. If you do some forecasting, I think there's going to be some chance of rain. So first and foremost, I hope they get it in, because whatever's going on with this hurricane's fucking things up for those in Florida. And now it's chasing us up the East Coast. I'm like, oh my goodness. We've had like some humid days and then just days of rain. And so first and foremost, I hope they play 4 quarters. And I hope everybody, number one key in the preseason is stay healthy. Let's hope that everybody that plays this game ends up leaving the game healthy. And if you guys paid attention to Lions on SI, the news of Jared Goff and the starters not playing is not news that was broken this week. Dan Campbell said it to Sirius Radio last week when they came to town. I always pay attention to when Dan Campbell, because I love Pat Kerwin and Jim Miller being a former Spartan. So whenever they set up their table, I tell my guys, hey, they're talking to Sirius. And Dan Campbell said then, last week, he said, hey, Jared Goff, and the starters are not going to play. So you're not going to see superstars play. So the football is going to be, after the first quarter or two, it's going to be effing sloppy. But look, here's what I'm looking for. Clearly, like you said, I want to see bets. How does he make impactful plays? I want to see impact. I want to see clearly the rookies. I think Mekhi Wingo, talking to him, he's got that dog mentality. He's working hard. He's learning from Aleem McNeil. You can hear his comments after I talked to him after practice on Tuesday. He's learning from Aleem McNeil, who's taken him under his wing. I want to see how he does. I'm thrilled, man. I think the guy that could make a highlight play, hell, if I want to make a bold prediction, you guys heard what I did last week. Maybe Sione Vaki can get a 60-yard run against a porous defense. So that would be great to see. I want to see the Vaki hype train take off. There's a lot of hype trains going on. I want to see if Vaki can make a play against the defense. I want to see Giovanni Manu when he's tired and how he handles certain schemes and how he handles blocking if he gets his opportunity. So clearly the rookies, clearly the wide receivers we talked about, who steps up. But to me, I think the most important person, the most important 2 people we talked about, Hendon Hooker has to look like he understands Ben Johnson's offense. And Jake Bates, if he's called upon, has to put the ball through the uprights. And I just want to see, like, the depth players. Like, you want to see if Nice has an opportunity to run this offensive line well. You want to see how the offensive line looks, because, unfortunately, day 2, the second-string offensive line had a brutal day. Patricia messaged and wrote that they had a lot of flags, procedural type stuff. It wasn't as crisp as she would have expected, or I would have expected either. So let's see how the backups do in those situations. Then you want to see the defensive backs and how Stephen Gilmore does, how the likes of Ennis Rakestraw does in the preseason. He's thrilled. He'll have his opportunity. So I'm excited, man. It's going to be fun. Look, it's tough. It's preseason, and it's not full game plan, not full exotic looks here. It's just execute the play. But it's football, man. I'm excited to see the Lions in their jersey. Man, traveling here was worth it. I hope that you guys get the opportunity to get on the road. You get a little bit more insight to see how everything happens. And, man, it was fun to see the NFL world here. You just see the hype. You just see – so, if you want to laugh, listen, I don't want to insult anybody, but Adam Schefter was walking around, and if that dude is 5'3", I'll be surprised. That dude was walking around, and I'm like, is that Adam Schefter? That's a short little dude. And I'm like, that's the head of the NFL insider information. That was like, oh my God. I wanted to go over there and be like, hey, what's going on, Adam? But no, he has a presence. Like, when he's there, you see him, but he's not that tall. It was great to see. It was great to see Schefter in New York. Good Morning Football was there. It was great. The fans of New York, man, they're amazing. They were shit talking Dan Skipper. It was crazy, and they were not happy to see the fisticuffs that were going on, and they were ripping on the Lions. So it was, listen, man, it was top to bottom a great experience. I truly hope that, I believe that you guys liked what I did with the live updates and giving you a sense of what it was like to be there. That's all my only mission is, to be like, hey, if somebody was there could they relay the information as if I was there? And that's all I tried to do. And I'll say this. Sometimes you have to recognize trends. There was no chance in hell I was taking a plane to New Jersey because I knew it was coming. It was pretty clear over the last 6 months, something's crazy going on with these airlines. So, guys, I'm not going to hide it. I rented a Grand Wagoneer, and
there we go, Doc.
Doc rented a Grand Wagoneer, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this kind of stuff anymore. You know why? The fucking seats give you the seats massage you. Like you can get a massage. I'm sitting there driving. I'm like, this is this is a $100,000 car that I rented for the week, and it is amazing.
They don't know that though, Doc. They don't know that. They don't know it's a rental.
The Jeep Grand Wagoneer is legendary. I mean, I was like, I could never drop that kind of money for a car, but the seats massage. It was the best 10-hour drive of my life. I loved it. There was no way I was going to rely on some airline to get me there, even in the rain. Listen, I'll recommend this. If you guys can get a chance to travel through Pennsylvania, it was 3.5, 4 hours through that part of town, through the beautiful mountains. It was a beautiful drive. I love driving long distances. I loved every minute of it. It beats flying by 1,000,000%. It's long. It's a little bit tedious, but I listened to you guys' show. I listened to other podcasts, and it was a beautiful experience. I can't wait to get in that car and drive back. I love it so much. Driving is great. It's a great experience. There's no headache. I'm not dealing with delays. Like some guys had to fly. Like I heard stories of guys having to fly into Hartford at 3 a.m., driving 2 hours. Some guys miss practice.
Hey, Colton Pouncey.
Yeah. I talked to everybody on. I heard everybody's story about who came and who didn't, and I'm like, I would not count on airlines at this point in time. And so I'm just excited for the opportunity. I hope everybody liked it, and I just felt like that the joint practices provided a lot of insights. And I love the fact that when you have these joint practices, I mean, literally, you had a guy in me watching Malik Neighbors catch the ball every single time. And then you got people look at one incompletion and are like, what are you talking about? You're the homer. Or what are you talking about? You lack perspective. I'm like, listen, man, the guy went 17 of 18 or 17 of 19. The ball like zapped to his hands. And I was mesmerized. I was like, this dude's legit. This dude's coming out here balling for it all. And it was a great experience. And I love the camps that kind of form. And they're like, there were people attacking Patricia Trania, my colleague, about her takes on Brian Burns. Brian Burns won a lot of reps. He was awesome. He was awesome to see. He's going to make everybody look like that. So it's not a knock on Penei Sewell or Taylor Decker that Brian Burns was doing some things. But yes, Penei Sewell won a lot of reps. Taylor Decker won a lot of reps. But Brian Burns was moving his way. He was worth every penny for them. But at the same token, Levi Onwuzurike did well. Oh, I want to close on this. Booner, forget about it. Forget about Defensive Player of the Year. I know it's not a situation that happens too often, but why not Hutch MVP? The man is Hutch MVP. He gets out there. He blows through everybody. Listen, the man's hungry. The man looked ferocious out there, and he just came to work. And if he plays at that level where you're just writing 97 all the time, look out. He was in the backfield. Oh, one last name I want to throw out there that has been doing work that will make the team. Okay, and eventually I'm going to have to now track him down and talk to him to get his story. But Kyle Pecco is a Detroit Lions defensive lineman. There was one rep where he and Hutchinson just destroyed the Giants' offensive line and got back there. They would have destroyed the quarterback. So I think Pecco is now above Broderick Martin, but just a little bit because of his veteran leadership and his experience with Terrell Williams. But you're going to learn the name Kyle Pecco. He's just all over the place. 96 and 97 wreaked havoc. So it was a great joint practice. I think that you got insider analysis from what we did at Lions on SI. And I had a chance to talk to a lot of people, but I brought the news here first as to what I saw. And I think that you guys appreciated it.
Love it. You know what?
Bet your ass.
That was great, Doc.
Great stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, we got Adam Shefty short. A lot of takeaways. I mean, come on, you get it all with the doc. That's why we love him. And we do.
And okay, and here's the 2 minutes on the city of New York. It has everything in all-in-one chaotic mess of a melting pot. Like, I've been to Times Square at night. You literally can have a person that's probably worth $50 million walking the street right next to a homeless person who's talking to himself, asking if George Bush is coming back to office. It's crazy to see, but it's just it's go with the flow mentality. But it is packed. It's full of energy. It's full of life. The pizza is amazing. The food is amazing. Street vendors for days. It's just craziness all the way around. It's just literally like a circus of people just doing a bunch of things. And the energy level there was so fun to get into town. I loved every second of it. It's expensive, but at the same token, you have a good time and you experience it for the week. So I've had a good week. I'm coming back into town Friday. And like I said, we'll have a full recap of the game. I'll be there. So enjoy the game. Enjoy the Lions in their new jerseys. And, hey, the Detroit Lions are going to put football on tape for the first time this year. And I can't wait to be there. At MetLife Stadium, let's go.
Oh, it's going to be great. You guys please go check out. Link will be in the description. Go check out Detroit Lions on Sports Illustrated. John will have it all covered. John, we appreciate you. Have a safe drive/flight back. And then we'll catch you next week, my man. Appreciate you a ton. Thank you.
Yeah, no doubt. Driving, baby. No flights for me. Hell no.
All right, there you go. Smart man. Very smart man. Have a safe drive. There you go. John Maakaron, the doc. And again, this interview / episode was brought to you by BetUS.